One summer moment can change a child's life. Through Toys for Tots Give and Go initiative, your support provides books, games, toys, and outdoor adventures that spark curiosity, creativity, and a love of nature. Whether it's fishing, learning a new sport, reading under a tree, or playing with friends, these moments build confidence and lifelong memories. For too many children, those moments never come. You can help change that this summer. Visit toysfortots.org. Toys for Tots, delivering hope beyond the holidays.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me, taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
And welcome to, again, our live program here at 7:30 Eastern Time here in New York. I'm Jake Novak. Freedom 250, the decisions that made America, a different kind of history program in honor of America's 250th birthday. And this is not the first episode. We've been doing this for a couple months now, because the 250th anniversary celebration should indeed be a year long, if not more. And learning about the 250 years is really an important part of this game. And I decided to do this a little bit differently than just telling you about dates in history, or maybe even some of the details behind things that happened, and make it more about individual decisions. Because while I do believe that there are institutional and large-scale forces at play that lead to certain outcomes, I do think that America has been very much punctuated by individuals who made decisions that could have easily gone the other way. They could have decided something differently, and we're all really grateful that they did this. And whether those things would have happened, I just talked about the Brooklyn Bridge. Somebody else would have built the Brooklyn Bridge, maybe eventually, sure. But without the Roebling family making these crucial, tough decisions, it's not made by 1883. I'm just telling you that right now. So I do like to focus on individual decisions. Joining us right now is the president of a group called Courage is a Habit, but he's also an expert on what's going on in our schools and what's going on in our culture. His name is Alvin Lui. L-U-I is how you spell his name if you want to check him out on your search engines. He's a great, great American. And Alvin, you were the first person I thought of when I heard some of the people in the White House this weekend talking about how they're worried that patriotism is on the decline in younger generations because our education system is filled with teachers who are teaching anti-American propaganda. And, it doesn't sound like a stretch to me. I think that they're over the target, Alvin.
It's so great to talk to you again, my friend. Thank you for having me on. No, absolutely. They are correct. I mean, it's not even just teachers. I think when I hear people say it's just some teachers and some classes, I think we're in real big trouble, because that means so many Americans still don't understand. It's not some teachers, it's not some classes, it's not blue states or just, certain big cities. It's the entire system. And one of the things that we try to do at Courage is a Habit is we realize that if you start with the wrong premise, you will forever be, number one, be shocked, and number two, you're never going to get to the solutions. So, for example, earlier this year, we had students march against ICE to protect violently illegal aliens. 99% of Americans were shocked. They were saying things like, why aren't they in class learning math and science and how to read? Why are they marching? Why aren't they in class instead? And our response at Courage is a Habit was, well, they're marching because they have been in class. So the premise is wrong to say, let's get back to academics. There is nothing to get back to, because the purpose of government K through 12 is to create children who hate America, is to look at the American flag and patriotism as racist and oppressive. And so when you see the dismal reading scores and the dismal math scores, you shouldn't be shocked. You're only shocked because you still believe that the purpose of government K through 12 is for academics. But if you change to the right premise, which is what I said, it's to create children. The new Red Guard is to create children who hate America, is anti-white, anti-America, anti-excellence, anti-merit. Then if you start with that premise, Jake, and then you match with what you're seeing in the real world and how children are, all of a sudden it all makes sense. And so when we don't ever say education is failing. It's not failing. It's actually a grand success because they're meeting their goals.
Good point. Alvin, the last thing you mentioned the word merit towards the end of your answer there. And I submit to everyone listening that the most radical and still anger-producing idea in the history of mankind is the very idea of meritocracy. With the preamble that I always give, we understand we're never going to create a perfect meritocracy. But lots of luck if you don't try, if you're not trying to focus on that. And when we first saw, and it is the Bible that first brings this idea, it says, by the way, you're not going to be judged by your skin color, birth order, gender, or the many different gods having a good day or bad day. You're going to be judged by your good deeds and bad deeds, and there's an accounting being taken.
Mm-hmm.
That is an incredibly rejected idea. It's, I don't know how many thousands of years old it is exactly. Anthropologically, I'd say it's about 5,000 years old, maybe 4,000 years old. People and countries have been battling against this idea as if it were the worst idea, because no unlawful, indecent leadership, and most leadership isn't at some point becomes unlawful. It's sad, but that's the way it goes, is going to want to accept that idea. No, we'll tell you what's right and wrong. And I'll tell you that if this guy is going to get a favored treatment or that person's going to get favored treatment. And all I can say is one of the tricks that they do, and this is one of the tricks that they do in their bashing of the United States, is knowing that there never will be a perfect meritocracy, they point to the few faults here and there and say, you see, this doesn't work. Let's go back to choosing people favoring people based on color, birth order, gender, and all those, because that was better. And of course it isn't. So it's one of those things where I'm not expecting our teachers, Alvin, to come to our kids and say, this is the greatest country in the world. Don't ever say anything bad about it. What I'm expecting them to say is some version of what I just said before. No, it's not perfect. We've had all these failures, but we're the only country from day one that set out to be a meritocratic nation and a free nation in this way. No one else has even tried, at least at the time of 1776. No one had tried at that point. And that's what we've got to get along to our children. This is something that I think liberals and conservatives can agree on. We're not perfect, but we're trying. We're trying, man. And don't come and tell us, like Mayor Mamdani said on Friday, that the only good thing about America is that we accept people who come in here to fix us. No, immigrants make us better. They can make us better, but they're not here to fix us. That's not it might seem like a little nuance there, but it's an important dichotomy. Go ahead, Alvin.
My position is actually beyond everything you said, which is absolutely excellent. And that's exactly true. We're the only country that's ever tried this experiment, which is why we have grown and pulled more people out of poverty than any other country in the history of the world. In the short time we've been alive. By the way, I want to do a little bit of a math for you, and I think that you're actually going to enjoy this math very much. So on July 4th, I pulled four of the oldest countries that have existed. And when I pulled this country, and I did Egypt, Iran, China, and San Marino. Those are the four oldest countries that's still kicking and have a civilization. And on average, between the four, they've been around for 4,043 years on average.
Okay. With
Egypt being the oldest at 5,126. So if you do the math, at 250, we're equivalent to about 4.5 years old.
Yeah.
Which is basically just out of toddlerhood, right?
Yeah.
And so anybody who's been a parent who has a 4-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 4.5-year-old, 5-year-old knows that you can have a prodigy, you can have a genius kid, but
Mozart was performing
right?
it for, right?
Yeah, he's still a kid, and genius or prodigy or talent doesn't equal wisdom. And oftentimes, obviously, one of the hallmarks of a child is their naivete, right? They're optimistic, they're very naive, and which is great, right? Which is what
charming,
makes it so beautiful. So I would say that when people like Mandami and these people who hate our country, who's always talking about our flaws, you know what? In my opinion, the only flaw that's worth talking about in this 250 years, especially the last 30 years, is our extreme kindness and tolerance and inclusion.
That's right.
That's the only flaw that I would ever want to talk about, because that inclusion has been so weaponized. That kindness and that compassion has been so weaponized is what's actually destroying our country today. So if there's going to be a flaw that we want to look at, is that of a child who doesn't know that there's evil. Children love everybody. And obviously, as you grow older, you realize that, okay, there are some people that I'm going to let in my life, and there are some people that I should exclude in my life, which is, of course, this is why you have parents. And so if you look at America as a 4.5-year-old child, our flaws, the only flaws, is not because we scraped our knee or not because we threw a temper tantrum or that we threw food. The only flaw that I want us to focus on is our extreme inclusion and our extreme compassion. And if we don't fix those things, we won't see another 250 years. So none of the flaws that these critical race theorists and the mandamis and the people who hate us, who want to see communism, I don't care what they say about their our flaws. Those flaws don't matter to me. What I want, and it's even for children, the only flaw that matters is our openness, which is what's destroyed us. And I would love to see us learn from that, which is okay, right? We're 4.5 years old, very young.
Yeah.
I want us to go back. I want us to recommit ourselves to holding a higher standards and embracing exclusion, which is what we talk about all the time. Embrace exclusion, which means draw harder boundaries and raise the bar of merit, which goes back to exactly what you say, and say, we're going to put the bar here. If you don't hit it, there's no equity. If you don't hit it, that's your problem. But we're going to give you the opportunity,
right? But
don't cry about it if you can't hit it. That's the only way we can stay great. And obviously, you and I both know over the last 20, 30 years, our country has suffered not because of our flaws from the past, it's because of our weaponized kindness.
Alvin, we're speaking with Alvin Lui. Courage is a habit. And we just have like a minute left, but I just want to put one specific example to what I think Alvin was talking about. It's a good example of what he was talking about, because we can talk about our openness and our kindness as a general idea, but it helps always to get specific. The Indian Ocean earthquake in 2004 and the resulting tsunami in Thailand. The American people donated a massive amount of money. Most of the people couldn't even find these places on a map. And Alvin, we've subsequently learned, and I remember at the time that it was happening being worried about this, but not being the kind of person who would say don't donate. We've learned that a huge amount of that money ended up in the hands of terrorists, ended up in the hands of people who are enemies. But, we did it anyway. And so the answer is not to not give charity. That's not the answer. The answer is, can we do a better job of directing our funds to a proper place? 30 more seconds, Alvin. What's your message for this 250th anniversary for the crowd here?
Is that there's don't wait for a savior. Don't wait for a savior. Don't wait for the Supreme Court or the president or anything like that. You have to get your hands dirty, especially if you have school-age children. Go to courageasahabit.org. Click on Tool of the Week. We just gave you a turnkey on how to handle the big Supreme Court decision on how to protect your kids, especially if you have girls in sports. And we have a lot of those tools, and it's meant for the everyday average parent, so that they can protect their children and get involved. You got to get involved locally. Fantastic. Alvin Lui, Courage is a Habit. Always great talking with you, and thanks for joining me and jumping over from TV to radio to do it with me today. I love talking to you, sir. I hope to be back. All right, sounds great. All right, we're going to be right back with, speaking of people who come here to make things better, not to fix us. Country isn't completely broken in any way, but we have someone who's come here to this country to make things better with an incredible patriotic composition, music, more music, still great on the radio. And we'll be right back with that when we come back on Freedom 250, the decisions that made America.